Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take source material, really cut through it, and pull out the key knowledge you need, well, fast.
And today we're diving into the global outlook for Octyl Phenolic Tackifying Resin.
That's right, and we've got verified data here from Cognitive Market Research. It gives us a nice long view, 2021, right out to 2033.
So our mission really is to unpack those revenue numbers, the projections, get a handle on the growth rates, the CAGRs,
Right.
and figure out where the specific market is actually heading over the next, decade or so.
Yeah, it's about seeing the big picture, but also the important details within it.
Exactly. The forest and the trees.
Okay, let's get into it. First up, the global market picture, big overview. What did it look like back in 2021?
Okay, so in 2021, the total market size was valued at $280.5 million.
$280.5 million.
Got it.
And looking forward.
Well, the data points pretty clearly upwards. It's forecast to hit $354.2 million by 2025.
Okay.
And then keeps climbing, reaching about $564.5 million by 2033.
Wow, okay. So quite a jump by 2033. What does that translate to in terms of overall growth?
Over that whole period, 2021 to 2033, we're looking at a global compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 6%.
6% globally.
Yeah.
So what's really pushing that growth? What are the fundamentals?
Well, the source highlights increasing use in areas like adhesives,
Makes sense.
rubber compounding, and coatings as well.
Yeah.
These are industries where, that specific tackifying property of the resin is just essential.
Ah, right. So as those end-use sectors grow, the demand for this resin just follows suit.
Exactly. It's pretty directly linked.
Okay, that makes sense for the global picture. But, these global numbers, they often hide some really interesting regional stories.
Oh, definitely. The picture changes quite a bit when you zoom in.
So let's do that. How about we start with North America?
All right. North America. In 2021, it was a pretty significant chunk, $74.3 million.
Okay.
That's forecast to grow to $92.1 million by 2025, and then hit $142.5 million by 2033.
And the regional CAGR there?
Comes in at 5.6%.
5.6%. So just a little bit under that global 6% average.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing in the data within North America, countries themselves have quite different speeds, right?
That's exactly right. There's a real divergence. The U.S., obviously the biggest market there, shows pretty steady growth. It goes from $61.2 million back in 2021 up to a projected $112.3 million in 2033. That's a 5.3% CAGR.
Okay, 5.3% for the U.S. But Canada's
actually moving a bit faster. It's forecast to go from $8.1 million up to $17 million over that same time frame,
right,
giving it a higher CAGR of 6.3%.
Okay, so Canada outpacing the U.S. slightly.
Yeah.
And then there was Mexico.
Ah, yes, Mexico. This is where it gets particularly interesting, I think.
Yeah.
It's expanding at the fastest rate in the whole region. We're talking an 8% CAGR.
8%, wow.
Yeah, climbing from $5.1 million in 2021, projected to $13.2 million by 2033. That 8% really jumps out compared to the 5.3% in the U.S.
It really does. That kind of gap of 5.3 versus 8% within the same region, it makes you wonder, what specific industrial things are happening, or maybe investment patterns that are driving demand so much faster down there?
It's a great question. Definitely something underlying that difference.
Okay, so let's step away from North America. How does the picture look across in Europe?
Europe's market was a little smaller than North America's in 2021, starting at $63.4 million.
Right.
The projections take it to $78.6 million by 2025, and then $123.1 million by 2033.
And the growth rate for Europe overall?
The regional CAGR is 5.8%.
5.8%. Okay, so Europe is actually tracking a bit faster than North America overall and really close to that global 6% average. How does it break down by country?
Well, Germany is the biggest player in Europe for this resin. It shows a steady climb, $11.9 million up to $24.3 million. That's a 6.1% CGR.
Okay.
Interestingly, the UK market shows slightly faster growth. It's at a 6.8% CAGR.
Oh, okay.
Going from $7.2 million back in 2021 to a projected $15.8 million by 2033.
And the source gave numbers for others too, didn't it? France, Italy?
Yeah, it did. France is looking at 5.2% CAGR, Italy 5.5%, Russia was 5.1%, Spain 5.4%. So mostly growing, near or maybe slightly under that European average.
Seems fairly consistent across the board for the major ones.
Mostly, yes. But what's kind of interesting is a smaller market like Luxembourg.
Luxembourg, really?
Yeah, I mean, it starts from a small base, just $1.4 million, but it's projected to double to $2.8 million by 2033. That gives it a 6.2% CAGR.
Huh. So faster than France or Italy.
Exactly, faster than several of the larger economies there. And then the rest of Europe category, that grows collectively from $17.9 million to $34.7 million, which is a 5.7% CAGR, pretty much spot on the regional average.
So Europe feels like a mix-in. You've got these big, steady markets showing solid growth, but maybe some smaller spots with a bit more relative momentum.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, let's shift focus now, turning east.
Okay.
Asia Pacific. I have a feeling this is where the story gets pretty dynamic.
Oh, you are absolutely right. It really is the growth engine in this market. Asia Pacific was already the biggest region in 2021 at $104.4 million.
Right, already leading.
And it's expected to reach a really striking $235.4 million by 2033.
Wow, so more than doubling.
Exactly. And that gives it an impressive regional COBA share of 6.9%, clearly leading globally.
6.9%, is that mostly driven by, say, China?
China is definitely a huge force, no doubt. It's growing at a very strong 7.2% as CAGR. It goes from $44.7 million in 2021 to $103.1 million in 2033. So massive growth there.
Okay.
But the real standout, I'd say, is India.
India. How so?
It's showing the highest CAGR, not just in the region, but one of the highest globally that we're seeing in this data. It's expanding at an incredible 8.1%.
8.1%. For India, that's huge.
It really is. Going from $19.5 million up to $49.5 million. That kind of number suggests some really specific, rapid industrial growth happening there that needs this kind of resin.
Absolutely. That points to some serious activity. What about other places in the region? Japan, Korea?
Yeah, solid growth there too. Japan's looking at 6.2% CAGR. South Korea at 6.7%.
Okay.
And Southeast Asia, as a whole block, is also expanding very quickly. That area goes from $13.4 million to $31.3 million. That's a strong 7% CAGR.
So Asia Pacific isn't just the biggest region. It's consistently growing faster across, well, pretty much all its key economies.
Right.
Driven by that industrial demand you mentioned.
That's the picture, yes. Very strong underlying demand.
Okay. Let's shift gears again. What about South America?
South America shows, I'd say, more steady, consistent growth. Not quite the explosive dynamic we see in Asia Pacific.
More moderate. Okay.
The data shows Brazil leading the way down there. It's projected to grow from $7.5 million to $15 million. That's a 6.1% CAGR.
Right around the global average, then.
Exactly. Argentina and Colombia also look promising. Argentina's at 6% CAGR. Colombia slightly higher at 6.2%.
Okay.
Peru and Chile, they start from smaller absolute numbers, naturally, but they're going to, at 5.4% and 5.5% CAGR, respectively.
So it's...
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
At 5.4% and 5.5% CAGR, respectively.
So it sounds like, solid, reasonably broad-based growth across the continent for this particular market.
Yeah, I think that sums it up well. Steady growth.
All right. Finally, let's cover the Middle East and Africa.
Right. And here, the picture looks quite different again compared to the other regions we've just talked about.
Different how? Slower.
Yeah, notably more modest growth overall. The source even points out some specific markets with really quite slow growth rates.
Yeah.
Egypt, for example, is only at 1.4% CAGR.
Wow, only 1.4%.
And Turkey is similar, at 1.6% CAGR.
Okay, very low compared to elsewhere.
Very low. And then the sort of collective rest of the Middle East category, that's projected to grow from $3.8 million to just $4.5 million over the entire forecast period.
Just $4.5 million total by 2033.
That's right. Which works out to a CAGR of only 1%.
1%. Goodness. That really highlights the huge regional differences we're seeing in this market, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. When you put that 1% CAGR in parts of the Middle East next to the, 8.1% in India?
Yeah.
It really throws the variations into sharp relief.
It certainly does. Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. After digging through all that regional data, what are the main takeaways from this deep dive into the Octyl Phenolic Tackifying Resin market?
Well, first, the big picture holds. The market is on a strong global growth path. That 6% global CAGR through 2033 seems solid, and it's fundamentally driven by its use in, adhesives, rubber,
Well, those
coatings.
core applications aren't going away.
Exactly. But the real story, as we saw, is in the geography. Asia Pacific is just the clear leader in terms of the pace of growth, followed by North America, and then certain markets within Europe are also showing decent strength.
And we saw that contrast, didn't we? Between, say, moderate, maybe more mature expansion in places like the US or Western Europe versus that really dynamic, faster acceleration happening in emerging economies. You mentioned India, China, Mexico, Southeast Asia.
Precisely. And the source directly links that faster growth in those specific dynamic markets to rising industrial demand overall, and particularly the expansion of end-use sectors within those economies.
Things like car adhesives, tire making.
Exactly. Automotive adhesives, tire manufacturing, flexible packaging was mentioned too. It's the intensity of that industrial build-out in those particular places that's creating this very uneven landscape for what is, a fairly specific industrial chemical.
Right. But an essential one for those applications.
Absolutely.
So this deep dive, really looking beyond just the global number at those specific regional CAGRs, the country values,
Yeah.
it paints a much more, well, nuanced picture of where this market's actually heading.
And where the real energy is concentrated, yeah.
Understanding those different growth pockets and maybe even speculating on the reasons why they're different. That seems pretty crucial for anyone involved in this industry.
I would think so, yes.
Okay, so here's a final thought maybe for you, the listener, to mull over after this deep dive. We've seen this huge gap in growth forecasts for this one specific industrial resin, from as low as 1% in some places up to over 8% in others. What might this focused snapshot tell us about the bigger shifts happening, the changing landscape of global manufacturing, maybe supply chains, consumption patterns? What might this imply for the next decade?
That's a great question to ponder. What do these micro trends suggest about the macro shift?
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to a deep dive into, well, a corner of the materials world you might never have heard of. But it's quietly helping hold together so much of what you use every single day. We're talking about Octyl Phenolic Tackifying Resins.
Yeah, I know. Sounds incredibly technical. Maybe a bit dry.
It does. But honestly, stick with us. These resins are, well, way more important and interesting than their name suggests.
They really are. And our guide for this deep dive is a market dynamics report, specifically focused on this niche but vital industry.
Right.
Think of this as getting the inside story on the health and maybe the future trends of a market built entirely around making things stick and stick really well.
Exactly. So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to try and cut through the jargon in this report and pull out the absolute key insights. We want to understand where these resins are hiding, what big pressures they're facing, and how the companies making them are having to get, well, really creative and innovate. We're basically getting the essential intel on this hidden component.
A hidden component that touches your life in loads of ways.
Definitely. So let's dive in. Maybe start by setting the stage. What exactly are these Octyl Phenolic Tackifying Resins?
Okay, so at their core, they are tackifying resins. That means they're components added to other materials, think adhesives or rubber,
Right.
specifically to give them stickiness or, improve how they bond together.
Okay, so they are like the secret sauce for stickiness. Got it.
Precisely. And this report, it really highlights that the market for these isn't standing still. It's experiencing some pretty significant dynamic shifts.
Shifts. Like what kind of shifts are we talking about?
Well, shifts driven by major forces, things like new industrial demands, stricter government regulations, and just constant innovation in materials science itself. It's a market that's, constantly having to adapt.
All right, so adaptation is key. What's pushing this market forward then? Where's the demand for this super sticky secret sauce coming from most strongly right now?
So the biggest force driving growth, according to this report, is the surging demand for high-performance adhesives.
Adhesives. Okay, that makes sense. Where are we seeing them used most in this context?
You see them heavily in construction, for one, and the automotive industry.
Okay.
Think about where adhesives are absolutely critical, like sealants for buildings, materials used to weatherproof homes.
Right, keeping the drafts out.
Exactly. And a whole range of components inside your car, the dashboard, the upholstery. These resins are becoming essential here.
Why there specifically?
Because they have some really specific, useful properties. They offer superior thermal stability, meaning they hold up even when it gets really hot or cold.
Okay, durable.
Yeah, and strong cohesive strength. That's their internal strength, how well the adhesive itself stays together.
Right.
And crucially, they provide excellent adhesion to non-polar surfaces.
Non-polar surfaces, what does that mean for, everyday stuff?
Think of surfaces that are normally tough to get anything to stick to, like certain plastics or some treated metals.
These resins help adhesives grab onto those. These characteristics make them indispensable, especially when the adhesive is used in what the report calls high-stress environments.
Like stress.
Yeah, places where it needs to perform reliably under pressure, temperature changes, maybe vibration, that sort of thing.
So they're not just making things sticky, they're making sure that stickiness lasts and actually works even when things get rough.
Exactly. That's the key.
Yeah.
Now, moving beyond just adhesives in buildings and cars, another vital driver is their significant role in the rubber and tire sector.
Tires. Wow, that's a huge industry.
Yeah.
How do these resins actually factor into making tires?
Well, they're crucial for enhancing tack.
Tack.
Yeah, that initial stickiness you need when layers of rubber are put together during manufacturing.
Ah, okay.
They also improve the overall bonding within the complex rubber compounds. You'll find them not just in making the tires themselves, but also in things like drive belts.
Right.
And any rubber needs to bond securely to metal. Ah, I see. Like the components under the hood that, keep things running smoothly or connect the engine parts.
Right, exactly. And the demand here is consistently strong. It's fueled by, the global comeback in automotive production we're seeing, and also the ongoing need for replacement tires, for all the cars already on the road.
Makes sense.
And a fascinating point from the report, actually, is their compatibility with green tire technologies.
Really? Green tires?
Yeah, it suggests they can fit into the push for more sustainable tire manufacturing as well.
That's interesting. So even in sustainable tech, these kind of maybe more traditional resins have a place.
Okay.
Where else are they showing up as a major driver?
The market's also getting a pretty big boost from the expanding use of labels and industrial tapes.
Labels and tapes, like shipping labels or...
And much more, particularly in really fast-growing sectors like electronics, healthcare, and logistics.
Okay.
Just imagine the labels on vital medical supplies or the specialized tapes used inside your phone or computer. Or just the sheer volume of labels needed for global package delivery these days.
It's huge. So what do the resins bring to those specific applications?
Well, they are key to providing high peel strength, meaning the label or tape stays stuck when you need it to.
Right.
But maybe can be removed cleanly if it's designed that way. And also excellent long-term aging resistance.
So it doesn't degrade over time.
Exactly. In industries like medical or electronics, reliability isn't just important, it's absolutely essential, non-negotiable. These resins help ensure that critical labels and tapes perform consistently over time.
Okay, so we've covered adhesives for construction and vehicles, the massive tire and rubber industry, and this growing world of labels and tapes. That's a huge reach.
It really is.
But it sounds like it's not all smooth sailing for these resins, is it?
Yeah.
What kind of challenges are mentioned in the report?
You hit the nail on the head there. Despite the growth, there are significant headwinds. A major one is increasing scrutiny over the health and environmental effects.
Right.
The ones linked to phenolic compounds generally.
Environmental concerns. What are the specific worries there?
Well, there are growing concerns about their potential toxicity, for one, and how persistent they might be in the environment, basically. Do they stick around for a long time?
Okay.
Regulators are also increasingly focused on controlling VOC emissions.
And for anyone not familiar, VOCs.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Emissions.
And for anyone not familiar, VOCs.
VOCs, volatile organic compounds. Think of them as chemicals that can easily evaporate into the air at room temperature.
Right.
Some VOCs can be harmful to human health or the environment, so there's a big push to reduce them. Plus, there's increased attention on occupational safety for workers handling these materials.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And where are these regulations hitting hardest? Which markets?
The report points specifically to North American and European markets as being particularly stringent on this.
Okay.
And this pressure, it means manufacturers are facing what the report calls costly reformulation efforts.
So expensive changes to how they actually make the resins just to meet stricter environmental and safety rules.
Exactly. And it also adds significant burdens just navigating the complexity, complying with different rules in different places.
Mm.
Then another major challenge highlighted is the volatility in the price of raw materials.
Ah, okay. What are the main ingredients here that are causing trouble?
The two key ones are octyl phenol and formaldehyde. And the report notes that both of these are derived from petrochemical sources.
Ah, okay. So they're linked directly to oil and gas prices then.
Precisely. I mean, think about it. These resins are, in a way, cousins to gasoline or plastic.
Yeah.
So when you see fluctuations in global crude oil markets, it directly impacts the cost and the stability of the supply chains for these resins.
Right.
This unpredictability, it drives up production costs, and as the report puts it, it compresses profit margins for the companies making them.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's causing many companies to really rethink their long-term sourcing strategies and actively look for alternative materials.
So it's not just the environmental pressure, but the basic economics of the raw ingredients creating uncertainty. Which brings us to, what, the third big challenge?
Yes, exactly. The growing competition from more environmentally friendly solutions.
Okay.
We're seeing a significant shift towards low VOC and, interestingly, bio-based tackifiers starting to reshape the market landscape.
Bio-based, like coming from plants or other natural sources.
That's right. The report gives examples like tackifiers derived from lignin, which comes from wood, terpene, often found in pine trees, and rosin, also derived from plant resins.
Interesting.
These are gaining traction, particularly in areas with policies favoring eco-friendly adhesives. And the report suggests this may hinder the long-term demand for traditional phenolic-based tackifiers.
Wow. Okay. So they're getting squeezed from multiple directions here. Regulations pushing for safer materials, unstable raw material costs linked to global energy markets, and competition from newer, greener alternatives. That's a tough spot to be in. How is the industry responding? What innovations or trends are, keeping them competitive?
Well, despite those significant challenges, the report does emphasize that the industry is far from stagnant. It's actively innovating and adapting.
Good to hear.
A key trend is manufacturers developing newer grades of resins, specifically designed to be regulatory compliant and, well, safer.
Safer how? What are they actually changing?
They're focusing on significantly reducing the amount of free phenol content, those unbound phenol molecules that are a primary concern, and lowering those VOC emissions we talked about earlier. These efforts are directly aimed at improving safety, both for the workers handling the chemicals and for the environment.
And is that opening up new places where these safer resins can be used?
Absolutely. By addressing these safety concerns, they are opening doors into what the report calls sensitive application areas.
Like where?
Places where traditional versions might not have been allowed before. Think about adhesives used in medical packaging where biocompatibility is critical, or maybe in food-safe packaging where regulations are extremely strict.
Okay, that makes sense. So making the resins themselves inherently safer is one path. What else is driving innovation in this space?
Another big one is the emergence of electric vehicles and advanced energy systems. This is creating entirely new opportunities.
EVs again, we keep coming back to them. How do these resins fit into electric cars specifically?
Well, they are increasingly being used in the adhesives and encapsulants needed within the battery systems and other critical components of electric vehicles. In these applications, properties like resistance to heat and vibration resistance are absolutely essential for safety and performance.
Ah, okay. Like holding the complex battery cell structures together securely, protecting them from bumps and heat.
Exactly that. Their successful integration into EV battery packs is actually a prime example of their potential in these future-ready technologies that are shaping our world.
That's potentially a huge new market for them, isn't it?
It could be, yes.
Any other big trends in how they're actually using these resins now?
Yes. One significant trend is the move toward hybrid formulations in adhesives.
Hybrid, like blending these octyl phenolic resins with different types of sticky stuff.
That's precisely it. Companies are blending them with other types of tackifiers. The report mentions things like rosin esters or hydrocarbon resins.
Okay.
The goal isn't just to, say, dilute them or cut costs. It's actually to create new formulations that achieve a specific desired balance of properties, tack, cohesion, resistance, tailored for very particular jobs.
So essentially creating custom-engineered stickiness by combining different ingredients to get the best of all worlds.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. These hybrid systems are proving invaluable in what the report describes as complex applications. Areas requiring very specific high performance, maybe certain aerospace adhesives, advanced medical devices, or even some high-performance consumer goods. Blending basically broadens the functional scope, allowing these resins to tackle jobs they couldn't handle quite as well on their own.
Wow, okay. So pulling all of this together then, for you, the listener,
Yeah.
these octyl phenolic tackifying resins,
Mhm.
this sort of invisible component you likely never think about, are actually essential in so many things you interact with daily. The car you drive, the building you're in right now, the electronics you use.
Maybe even the packaging your medicine came in.
Exactly.
Right. And the industry producing them is in this constant state of flux, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having to balance that fundamental need for super reliable, high-performance stickiness with the very real pressures of environmental responsibility, those unpredictable costs of raw materials, and the rise of newer, greener competitors. It's a real juggle.
And they're doing that by innovating, making safer versions of the resins themselves, finding brand new applications in cutting-edge tech like EVs,
Right.
and creating these sophisticated hybrid blends to meet increasingly demanding needs. It really is a hidden world, but one that's incredibly dynamic and, well, essential to modern manufacturing.
It truly is a fascinating corner of the chemical industry. So we've taken this deep dive into the drivers, the challenges, and the innovations shaping the world of octyl phenolic tackifying resins, all guided by this market report.
And perhaps a final thought for you to maybe chew on after this deep dive.
Right.
Consider how these seemingly tiny specialized chemical components, tucked away in things you never see, are actually quiet enablers of the huge technological shifts we do hear about all the time, like the massive move to electric transport.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And also how the broader global push for sustainability isn't just changing the finished products you buy, but is fundamentally altering the materials and chemicals that form the very building blocks of our modern world, even in places you'd absolutely least expect it.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.